I guess we'll, hi Dick, how are you? Can't hear.
Try to record it, Sandy, just to see if it, I hope I don't run out of space.
Okay.
I'll just move it off to the to computer at work.
All right, thank you. Guess we'll give it another minute and then I don't know where Wendy is. I didn't hear anything.
No, I haven't heard from anyone either.
Well, the other thing is I could also start because I have to read that whole statement anyway.
Wendy's here, so she's joining.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Well, good evening. Welcome to the July 1st extra meeting of the Bow Conservation Commission. I'm Sandy Crystal, Chair of the Conservation Commission. And I'm going to first review the statement regarding compliance with the right to know law during the state of emergency. As chair of the Bow Conservation Commission, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting. Is there by telephone? Was there? Oh, there was by telephone with additional access by video. We're using Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the commission have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing in or direct access for Zoom through Zoom in accordance with the instructions posted on the Bow Planning Board website and Conservation Commission website. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of at bownh.gov. Providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem joining the meeting, please email Alvina Snegach at asnegach@bownh.gov. And then adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Unless you are a commission member or presenter to the commission, please remain muted for the duration of the meeting and turn off your video feed. We will open the public hearing or open the meeting after we review the topics, and please raise your hand by clicking the participant icon. Or dial *9 if dialing in by phone, and we will unmute you to allow you to provide public comment. State your name and address for the record prior to speaking. You can also alert the host via chat option if participating via Zoom. I'm not sure we'll be taking votes, but please note that any votes that are taken during this meeting will be done by roll call vote. And let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states they're present, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. All right, Sandy Crystal, and nobody's here with me.
Wendy Waskin in the room by myself.
Mike Hanson by myself.
Bob Ball, I'm by myself.
Dick, are you there?
I think he's talking, but we can't hear him.
Oh. Yeah, we can't hear. He's having trouble with the audio. Let's see.
He's not muted.
You can try calling in, Dick, by phone
For
from
audio.
the phone number on the agenda. All right.
And I'm Venus Negus, recording secretary. I'm here alone, and we have a public member. I think it's Linda.
Yes.
Linda Millman. So that's our public member. I will rename you Linda so that it's visible that it's you.
Great. Thank you.
All right. I guess we should start by talking about, I don't know if we want to start by talking about the report and talk about either the organization or I think that it may be that what we'll need to do is, or what I will do is put together the comments that we all discuss here and try and organize them like the report or something, and then we can distribute them and make sure everything has been captured before we provide it to Jeff at Moosewood. So we can talk about it more afterwards, but I think probably that's what we'll end up doing. Does anybody want to start with any comments or thoughts or? Nobody's stepping up. Do you think that the organization of the report is how we think that the information should be presented? And then we can get into the information within it. Do we think there needs to be something else presented differently, just edits?
This is Wendy. I guess I'll start. I don't think I had any problem with the organization, and I think there's a lot of information there, and it's a good start, I think, for what we're looking for. But I guess my understanding is, I mean, this is the amount of work that they're giving us for what we had in the contract, correct? So what I'm saying it's a good start. I think it's like the commission can enhance, can work. I think this could be a living NRI, and we could enhance different sections and provide additional details. So some of it's more general than what I was expecting. A lot of just the broad general state information. But I think we could delve down in more detail as far as specific things related either to certain conservation areas or things that we want to focus at during a particular time. But
Well, thank you for those comments. I guess the question would be, is there something that you think that we can provide information to add to it now that we know of, that we think should be added to some sections?
Well, I know we had some comments on, I don't know if we want to jump into the story map, but I know some people at the last meeting were talking about things that they wanted added to that. Are you talking about that, or just the stuff before that?
Yeah, I was hoping that we would first do the report and then kind of switch over to the story map.
I guess I didn't have any problem with the organization of it, and I can't think anything right off the top of my head that we would have information at hand that we could get added to it. I just had just kind of general comments here and there throughout the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think anything major to change.
Right. Okay. Michael, do you have,
Yeah, I'd agree on the overall setup of the report was well done. And I think, like Wendy said, if we can add to it and possibly maybe get some of the other organizations involved, like Bow Open Spaces, have them look at it after we're done and see what they would like added to make this, especially the trail piece where it talks about in there, how using that tool. I'd never seen that tool before, so I thought that would be something be worth us sharing with them and seeing how do we incorporate that moving this document forward.
right. Yeah, I did, at least for our earlier meeting, I had sent notice and links to Bow Open Spaces. So I didn't hear anything from them, but I did let them know about it. But yeah, okay.
And then it was
Sandy,
like,
how about okay, go ahead.
then there was just like a couple of little things, like some clarification on like the watershed piece. They talk about the big Huck watersheds, but that's not going to mean anything to Bow. Like
Right.
they should break it down a little bit more into the more specific watersheds for the town, like Bow Bog and Turkey River and things like that. And then they mentioned the Selkirk, which is not even in Bow.
Right. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think the confusion there is the Huck district they're talking about actually is called Bog Brook, the Huck, but actually that goes way up into across the river.
Right. And they're mentioning Cohos too, which is mostly
Right.
Manchester. It's not even.
Yeah.
It's Bedford.
Right.
Yeah, I know. All right.
Maybe start with that, but they should delve down a little bit more specifically of what our watersheds are in this town.
Right. Like the Huck 12. Dick, have you been able to get through so that we can hear you?
Yeah, I have. It's just, it seems like it's echoing.
Yeah, you have to turn I think if you use your phone, you have to turn the speakers off on your computer.
Okay. Now? Yep.
Yes. Yeah,
that
that's
works.
better.
Thanks.
And Sandy, did this get shared with anyone else other than Bow Open Spaces at this point, or?
I did not.
Yeah.
I had thought about it, and I guess the thing is that maybe, I don't know, if we wanted, if there are things that we feel need to be added or changed, I have my own edits, that we could, I don't know whether we could get an updated version to then distribute or then seek comment on. I don't,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was just, one of the areas I saw in addition to Bow Open Spaces and trails is the little piece on cultural resources. I thought, obviously the Bow Historical Society would be interested in that, and that, they might want to expand upon that themselves later.
right.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. I think the other group would be in that, like on page 69 there, they should include some mention of the Bow Pioneers and the trail maintenance. because they
Right.
do too, to get them pulled into the report somehow.
Yeah. Dick, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to add about the report?
Not really at this time. I mean, I read through a lot of it, and it's all kind of new to me.
Mm-hmm.
So not sure.
Okay.
Do you want to go through some specific comments at this point, Sandy, or are we still talking general?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to, do you want to have some specific comments you want to?
I thought, this is on page 9. I thought they're talking about the buffer values didn't really indicate what Bow really has. They talk about 100-foot boundary, and you know, we have some additional stuff with the, you know, for the prime wetlands and different buffer limits. So I thought those ought to be made specific to what Bow currently has in the zoning ordinance.
And yeah, okay. I have a few pages that when I printed them, they printed out of order. So
They talk about 100-foot boundary, wetland buffer boundary. And
what page is that on? I'm trying to.
page 9.
Is it numbered page 9?
Yeah. That's what I wrote down anyway. Let me look here.
Oh, well, it talks about, yeah, 100-foot prime wetland buffers at the top. Yeah, okay.
So that just may be specific to what we currently have, and include the, and then the vernal pools also, whatever the buffer boundaries are for the vernal pools.
Yeah, our buffer boundaries on vernal pools are inadequate.
Yeah.
But maybe that needs to be called out.
Yeah.
That'd be a good idea.
Then there was a couple typos and stuff. I think I sent those to you. On page 52, they talk about the farm maps, but they didn't verify them, and I thought, I didn't know why they didn't end up very.
Yeah, the agriculture. Well, I think what they did is they used aerial imagery to look at areas that look like they're hay fields.
Yeah, but they never went back to verify them. Yeah.
And so yeah, well, I
Is that
think
something we were supposed to do as part of the contract?
well, you know, we didn't have that level of detail called out. They could have just used what the, land cover classification or whatever is out there, but they went farther and, you know, tried to more specifically call out agricultural habitat, you know, of grasslands or hay fields and stuff. So, you know, I don't, we don't have that. I think they did what they could, but I don't think that we kind of counted on them. Okay, you're going to field check everything you look at remotely.
Okay. You know, they verified a lot of other things. It kind of looks like an open hole in the report. You know, we didn't get this done kind of thing. So.
Well, it also maybe could be written differently because perhaps there are, we could even have a section of things to follow up on, either field-wise or otherwise. And that might be something that we might want to to identify.
Okay. Okay, next comment I had on page 60, when they're talking about the easements. I couldn't see on the map where they included the public service power line, that huge 345 kilovolt line. Are we considering that?
Well, that's not a conservation easement. So these are only conservation easements. That's really an easement to be able to do work on across that line.
But it could never be developed, right? So in a sense, it is, and it's a wildlife corridor, and it has some of the advantages of an easement. It just seems strange not to at least have it on the map as a corridor.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't put it. It's not a conservation easement. The thing is that if they did something with their lines, that could go away, because the land is actually owned by somebody else. You can actually also you can actually develop under the power lines. You can put pavement. You can't put a house, but you could put like a driveway. I mean, there are things that you could do under the power line on private property that might not be environmentally protective.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, it makes sense.
Yeah, because with some things that have come before the planning board, it's like, oh, well, we have a driveway that's paved under the power lines, and they could do that, but they couldn't do other things.
Okay. All right. Then on page 68, they had a lot of stuff about these Nature Conservancy maps, and they put a link into them, and that seems not a good thing. That if they're really gonna, first of all, links go away over time.
Yes.
And should they actually, if they're gonna, they make a pretty big deal about those maps. Should the maps actually go and report?
Well, the map is actually, one of the maps is on the previous page. Is on the facing page. In fact, one of the comments I made is that you need to mention, if you mention figure 10, you need to put the description before you get to the figure, not on the next page.
Okay, hang on, I'm looking here. What's on 68, page 68?
Yeah, the 68 is where the link is, and 67 is where the resilient and connected landscapes map. And Bow is kind of in the center. They're like, it covers, the map covers, multiple towns.
Okay.
But it shows Bow within the context of.
So they're just kind of putting the link in as a reference? Is that the deal? Do they expect somebody to actually?
Yeah.
Well, don't they say you can get more information at that link? I didn't go to it.
Right. I'll have to take a look. I'll take a look at the link and also see what it provides. The other thing is their reference list, and he noted it was incomplete, but it needs to have all these different references, and it doesn't have like the Nature Conservancy report reference or stuff. So it needs to add things like that in the reference list.
But so I'm just, what Bob, what are you suggesting as far as links? That they shouldn't have any links, or?
Yeah, links in a document are bad, right? Because they go away. Nature Conservancy could change websites or something. So,
well, especially to have such a direct link.
Yeah.
It may be that you go to, that you have it go to their main site, and then you can search from there or something.
I'm assuming this is like a 10-year document or something, right? I mean, it's going to be around a while,
Right,
and the links probably won't.
right. Although the thing is that if you're going to have a basic link to the Nature Conservancy, this also provides you with, one thing that I like is to make sure you have the titles of documents clearly stated, because you can always Google the title of a document and find your way to it
Yep.
if a link is broken.
So I just went to the link, and what it actually is, it's titled Conservation Gateway.
Right.
I mean, I personally would not want to just be sent to the Nature Conservancy website. I would find that very frustrating. So I don't know if,
Well,
I don't know what the protocol is for taking somebody here. I guess
Right.
maybe, could you send them to conservationgateway.org? I guess that's the,
yes, that's what
Yeah.
right. That's the first part of that link. And that's what I was thinking, because they've used that link for a long time.
yeah.
And
It is
also,
nice because it takes you right to that page, so which is nice right now. And I hear what you're saying though, Bob, about them possibly getting broken.
sort of like DES's web pages.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'm trying to remember what the protocol is, because we just did a document for our non-point source program plan, and there was something about links. I forget how we're supposed to do them, but
Well, I think with some of the ones that we had done in drinking water, we were just putting the des.nh.gov.
which is awful. You might as well not have anything, in my opinion.
Well, so
It's not helpful at all.
yeah. Well, I'll take a look at that. Anything else, Bob?
No, there was just a few typos, but I think I sent those to you, so no need to go over those.
Okay. I know that, does anybody have any other specific things they want to mention?
This is Wendy. I just had a comment about when this was like right when I started reading it. So I was like, you have all this bandwidth when you first start it. But so a couple of times they mentioned the population changes and the projections. And so the projection is from 1997 to 2020 of, I guess 23% for the state. But it just seems like you would want something like, how much has the state grown? I mean, is there any details up before that you
What
could
page is
cite?
that?
Because it was in the introduction. I just wrote down introduction.
Okay. Yeah, and also
And I think that
a lot
I
of the
think they mentioned
projections.
it somewhere else.
Yeah, some of the projections didn't become reality. I think for both,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah, and so I think that would be more if there, whatever would be the most current information for Bo. And then later on, I don't remember where it was, or maybe it's here, where they would compare it to New York. Was it New York City or
that's
something?
the percentage of open
conservation
space,
lands.
Yeah, conservation.
And I didn't get the correlation. Like, why are they making that comparison?
Yeah, well, I think that people kind of go, 20% or whatever, but there are other things that either the Forest Society has recommended. There are other places that talk about the importance of open space and either recommended amounts or what have you. And so the idea was, hey, if you think that number's high, well, New York has X amount. But yeah, I realize for a lot of people that doesn't mean anything.
I thought it was good. That
Okay.
really drove the point home to me that it's not really that high.
Right.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Okay.
That's good. It made sense. Because
Okay.
sometimes I just don't get stuff.
And it could be that additional leaving the New York comparison, but adding in information about, you know, either percentages that other places have either recommended, or the problem is it depends upon your resources, how much you really need to protect. If you had some, you know, really valuable resource that covered a large area, you know, you might want to protect more of it than a recommended percentage. So. Anything else, Wendy?
Let's find. So the Hammond property.
Right.
I just wrote this. Is that a what type of easement is on that?
It actually has a deed restriction on most of it.
Okay. So is it a nature preserve?
That's what the selectmen wanted to call it.
Okay. All right. That was my question. I just want to make sure they got that right.
Yes, it is called that. Let me, whoops. Here we go. Okay. Anything else? I mean, I have some things, but I didn't want to kind of take over.
Okay. Well, I had the reference to the ponds. This would be on page, I guess it's their page 13. I mean, the document's page 13. So it lists 5 ponds,
right,
but one of them is including the Garvin's Falls Dam. So I didn't really understand. You know, I don't know. I didn't know why.
Yeah. Well, I know it's sort of like, I don't know, do we include it because it only confuses people that don't know kind of technically how that is. But because it's impounded, it basically acts more like a pond or lake than
right.
than a river there. So it's actually that's and I can't remember. That's why I hate it says NHDES. Well, what NHDES document?
Oh, right,
so,
right, yeah.
You know, so it would be good to explain that. The other thing is, even though it's may not have been identified here, we should add in Town Pond just because of its popularity.
I was going to ask about that.
Yes.
About the Town Pond.
I mean, the thing is that the topos were done so long ago, although the pond's been there since then, but you know, Town Pond was created in a wetland.
Yeah.
But
it does seem like it's missing, right? If you don't mention that, because
right,
everybody knows.
But it's so heavily used that we definitely need to add that in.
Yep.
And I need
and then go ahead.
No, get a further descriptions for the Merrimack River, or figure out how to, you know,
okay,
describe that better to show why it shows up as a pond.
But then, and then on page 35, they reference ponds as well, and they talk about 238 acres, and they reference 4 ponds. And I'm trying to figure out where they come up with the 238 acres, because when you go back to this page 18,
well, it just picks out the larger ponds. Well, it picks out also like named ponds. So there might be lots of unnamed ponds, but yeah, I appreciate you pointing out the 2 areas where ponds are noted. This is under, what's the topic? This is under like the habitats or something. Let me see.
And when I say, I'm sorry, when I say page, because I wrote down, when I say page 35, I mean 35, not of the document, but when you're
Like
on
the Adobe,
35.
I call it Adobe page
Yeah.
35.
Yeah, so I'm on the PDF, yeah, page 35, where the other second mention is of ponds.
Well, the second mention of ponds is actually on page 35.
On their page 35?
Near page 35, yep. But yeah, thank you for pointing out the two. And I think what it is, let me just see. Yeah, I don't know, it's kind of funny. Anyway.
Okay, I guess I went back and forth. Sometimes I use one page over the other. Let me just see if there's anything else. I just had a note that I thought, and maybe this goes along with what Bob was saying, the discussion of the wildlife corridors I thought was pretty weak on page 49, but conservation focus. Oh, and when they make the recommendations, they talk about protecting known rare species populations, but I'm not really.
Where is it? What page is this on?
One of the recommendations, so I wrote page 89.
Oh, right, okay, I see it, okay.
And I just don't know, they don't explain, like, how do you protect the known rare species population?
Yeah. If they're not supposed to tell us, yeah. Yeah, I in fact, I wrote myself a note. If we don't know where they are.
Yeah, right, exactly. I thought the recommendation for developing the stewardship plans for our town-owned lands is a good one.
Yes, yeah, that's something we really need to do.
Oh, and then on the page 92 and 93, they have the habitat thing, like what's needed for different types of wildlife.
Oh,
was that just thrown in there, or is that like referenced somewhere?
Let me find it because it's on a different page then. That the table you're talking about? Oh, right.
Yeah. Habitat block size requirements for wildlife. I don't know. It seemed, and I don't know much. Well, maybe you've seen these before, but you'll have something that says 1 to 19 acres, but then of course it can. I guess it automatically carries forward as the acreage gets larger.
Right. It's that you can see that the animals, the wildlife in the bigger acreage, the numbers of species decrease as you get to the smaller acreage. But the thing is that a lot of these things that they presented really need captions to show what they represent, like the one that's of the trails in Nottingcook. The body of it may discuss things, but the figure really needs to have a caption that says what the image is all about. So, and I think with this table, that would be the same too, is you can actually, in a caption, kind of point out. And I was wondering which, my thought was like, can they bold things that they observed in Bow?
Right. I thought we would get that from this project, but I guess that was too much to hope for. Yeah, there really isn't any documentation of.
Yeah, well, I can ask. I mean, I think that there needs to be, there are places where they could make it more apparent that they got the information from their field surveys.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I think in some places it does sound pretty generic.
So that's all I have.
Okay.
That is a strange table, though, and some of the things they included. Like they have a category of small rodents, but then they get very specific with things like porcupine. I mean, I don't know where this came from, but it's kind of a weird mix of.
I did see, and they said like hare, and it's sort of like, okay, you mean like snowshoe hare?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, some things say, you know, most reptiles, and then it's reptiles. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to, I will ask about, what they've observed, and for things they didn't observe, maybe what, you know, we know that we've observed here, and like bold all of them, but yeah, bold those.
I think they did mention at one. I think I have a note here on page 24. They mentioned some things they found, but it was a very small list. Go back and look at that. I would have thought they would have seen a lot more.
And I guess one thing that might be, I don't know, like the discussion wasn't that much in this, or that's something we could do later on, you know, if we're going to be focusing on the wildlife, these animals that require over 2,500 acres, you know, that's pretty hard to find. So that's why you're going to, I don't know what you can say about it, but you're going to have interactions with populations, with the coyotes and the bobcats and the bears, you know, just because
they move, right. Yeah.
Right. So it's something I think the public really needs to be educated about and aware of.
At the bottom of page 24, they do mention a few things they saw, but you know, it's not very.
Yeah. Oh, well, I see they say wildlife observed in Appalachian oak pine forests.
And private properties included, but I assumed that was things they saw.
Right.
But
the fact is they were in other habitats as well.
Right. Maybe it gets back to your point earlier, Sandy, that we need a to-do list on this. And maybe part of the to-do list is a tracking study that they didn't get done.
Well, I think when you get down to the level of, you know, stewardship on a parcel, you can have somebody do, okay, let's look at the wildlife on this parcel and we'll see what's here. But to do it town-wide, you're not going to be tracking wildlife town-wide, you know, as part of an NRI. I mean, you can, but usually it's done on a more focused basis.
Okay.
Anybody else have any things I can go through? Some of the things that I have identified. I think when they talk about the surface waters, I think some of that needed some editing. We talked about Town Pond. I thought that there's information on cold water and warm water streams, and that Bo has some native trout streams. You know, we talked to them about it, and so there's really no mention about this part of that information. They do mention the Shoreline Water Quality Protection Act, but they could easily list the water bodies that are subject to it because there aren't really very many in Bow. But it would be good to list those. I think the groundwater resources, they really focused on the stratified drift aquifer, but I think they could also talk about the bedrock.
They did have that table in there of all the order of all the streams. I didn't check that out to make sure it was accurate. You think it'd be something else other than that? For which ones are covered under the shoreline protection?
Oh, well, the thing is that it's only going to be fourth order and larger. So it's probably, you know, that has a Sucook River on it, which needs to come out. There isn't, you know, most of the waters are not, but Turry Pond is covered by the Shoreline Water Quality Protection Act. The other thing is none of this mentions that the shoreline of, there's a section for Garvin's Falls Dam and stuff that's covered under an Eversource shoreline management plan.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not mentioned at all. So that's something that clearly he wasn't familiar with, but that should be, I think that would be good to put in there. Let me see. Yeah, some things relate to either sources or how they're noted. Table 5 has a summary of habitats mapped by the Wildlife Action Plan, but then the information in the table includes things that are not from the Wildlife Action Plan, and although they have it below, you know, because they talk about vernal pools and stuff, some of these things need like a different heading so that it doesn't appear to misrepresent what's in the table. Time is it? 48. All right. Ponds. So I want to ask people maybe a ridiculous question, but so the Wildlife Action Plan uses 3 colors for the highest ecological value, you know, region, the mid, and the lower. What do you call that? That tier 1 is the most important. What color would you call that? Do you know what I mean? Bob? They call it purple. I call it pink. I'm going, purple? What's purple? I'm like, oh, I know it's like a fuchsia.
It's not purple.
It's not purple. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We can call it like hot pink or something. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, the other thing is like they have rare species and natural systems documented in Bow, and they have the last observed is from the Natural Heritage Bureau, but 2 of the species I observed this year. So I want to kind of have them change that, and that's for the small world begonia and the blandings. So,
so how does that get reported, Sandy, and then that information get updated?
well, actually, I sent the small world begonia, I mean, the natural heritage. I don't know whether they go out and ever take a look or whether they've counted on, like the small world begonia is a plant that I found. So I've sometimes sent them information or, well, I sent it to them at the beginning, and then actually recently, I sent them an update as well to say, yeah, it's still here.
But the source here is cited New Hampshire Natural Heritage Bureau 2019. So if they're not reporting it, I don't know that. I mean, if you update it, then you'd have to put another asterisk down there.
Oh, yeah, I would probably put, you know, a Bow Conservation Commission or something. Like the blandings, there was a blandings turtle down the street from me in my development just a couple weeks ago. So, and I reported to Fish and Game because that was a new sighting, but
I know, but shouldn't it be officially documented somewhere? I mean, you only know because you happen to be the chair and you're looking at this document. There may be other sightings that have occurred, but wouldn't you have to wait until they get recorded before you update it?
if I know that it's been seen in town in 2020, we need to report it. The people don't think it's like 6 years old or 3 years old. You know, well, I'll have to look because actually Natural Heritage came out with a new list actually last month or something, or maybe May, but I don't think they changed most of the dates. I think they don't have a means to go out and really check these. I think that's really some of what it is.
And I did have a question about this because it says seen in the last 20 years. And if the American eel, so I guess it just made it. Or, you know what I mean? Because it's like, is that really the last time an American eel's been seen?
Well,
in
the problem
2000?
is nobody's looking.
Okay.
I mean,
but at some point, does it not matter? Like if it hasn't been seen or documented in 20 years, does that then not get? Is that then not an issue when somebody, you know, has to consult with?
They do have another category that's either that they call historical. So, but it would probably be for certain species that like no one has seen anywhere versus or if you know that there's been some event that would preclude them from being in that town, then you might, like I said, they do mark things as historical. If you, on the Natural Heritage website, they have in their publications, there's the either tracked species by town or what have you, is you can go and look at the document. And they don't update it very often, but they actually just updated it, like I said, in the past month or two. But if a lot of these things, no one's really looking for them, I mean, the habitats don't really change. It's kind of silly. Well, the poor level fen bog system in 2006, well, that's, you know, the Turry Pond wetland there. So that's still there.
So I guess this is maybe separate from the NRI, but when someone, you know, is getting a permit, wetlands permit or whatever, doing work, and they have to go to the Natural Heritage Bureau, and because we frequently see the eastern hognose snake and the Blanding's turtle referenced. If something hasn't been seen in 20 years, then do they no longer have to take protections for that particular species? Do you know?
Yeah.
Well, they still have to be cognizant of it for the permits. If they see something, they still have to report
right.
it.
That's
the
true.
AOT is now the new regulations, and they need to get biologists now have to do assessment of almost all sites moving forward. So any new sites will be, you know, they will be looking to see what is out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, technically they're supposed to check for the habitat or what have you.
Maybe this discussion, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Maybe this discussion brings up a good point though. This text ought to tell somebody if they see something, how to report it. In other words, you know, anybody is out and they see a turtle and they you know, they think it's a Blanding turtle. Most people wouldn't know what to do with that information. Maybe that ought to be in this report, what they do.
Right.
That'd be a good appendix.
What's that?
That'd be like a good appendix, you know, other resources, how people can be citizen scientists and stuff for this.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I guess the other thing is, does it really matter when it's last observed? for our purposes?
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. I was just curious about this. We deal with the permitting stuff. So, no, I think as far as the NRI, it's the fact that it was observed and is, you know, is good. It's good to
Right.
note that these things were seen. But I think it's good to have this, to point out these, you know, like you said, if people don't know to report it or people aren't looking,
Right.
you know, the more people we could have out there looking and reporting, the better.
Yeah, I actually, the Blandings turtle that I saw, I was taking a walk in my neighborhood and I saw somebody who was focused taking a picture of something and I went, oh, you know, animal or flower, and they said, a turtle. And I went over and I went, oh my, that's a Blandings turtle. I said, those are, you know, are protected, or well, more than protected, but in the state and stuff. It was cool. And it was, you know, like Blandings are, they're really good sized turtles. It was a large one. I think it had probably come up from Turry Pond, maybe to lay eggs. I don't know, but it was pretty large. Let's see. One thing I wanted to ask, the maps that are in here, I think it's a technical difficulties. When you have the document and you have maps that are a different size. And I didn't know whether we should either make the maps fit on the page or put the maps at the back. When I printed mine, I actually kind of forced it to print on the 8.5 by 11 page, you know, the legend and stuff you can't read, but the body of the map you could see. So I didn't know, and you know, we could always create a separate kind of document that's of all the maps. So if somebody wanted to have the set of maps separately in that larger format, they could have that. I don't know how folks feel about that.
I guess the map question for me is you should be able to look at one of these maps and then somehow get over to the online map where you could actually blow it up and zero in on it. This relates a little bit to the storybook issue.
Right, yeah, which we need to get to.
These printable ones are not real useful for my eyes, my age. And so, but if some way I knew that map and I could go look at it online, blow it up, zero in on a particular section, maybe add a layer or something, that would be really neat. I don't know if the technology is such that they could do that, whether it be a link in this document to the actual online one or what. But that would be better than having a printed set of maps for me.
Right. Well, does that, I guess, do other people feel that, so forcing it to be 8.5 by 11 so that it can be in the right order, would that be the way to do it? And then we can have separate maps, and then we'll see either with the story map or also with the ArcGIS online, with the, you know, the tax maps, whether they'd be able to open to adding some of the information we have. So that's another thing. But I guess I wanted to give Jeff feedback on that. So I guess it would be good to know whether to get an answer to that map question.
And I think if you force them to like 8.5 by 11, they're going to be even harder to read. So that's probably why he put them in as big as he could. You know,
right. It's just that when you're looking at a document, either on the computer,
right.
It's difficult. If you want to print it, it makes it a challenge because
Yep.
you have this larger format in between.
So are we going to get like a hard copy of this for the town?
Well, I'm sure we'll, I can't, I have to look and see what we what was in the contract. But I know that we were supposed to get a certain number of maps, and I don't know whether we were supposed to get enough copies, sets for the commission members, or I can't remember.
Because I think that's what it's going to come down to, is how clear is the maps if he makes them 8.5 by 11 or not.
That's going to be too small.
Well, I think the idea is you get an overview of the topic on the smaller map, and then you would, you know,
Make an appendix of the larger
then
one.
you have an appendix of the larger ones, or you have a separate document online that has all the maps together as a booklet type of thing, or
But your point, Sandy, is a good one. If somebody did want to print this document, it's very difficult to do from a normal printer in this format. So I don't, you know, just answer that simple question. Would people find it frustrating to have all the maps at the end, or, you know, not sequential with the topic? Or I think is one of the questions we should answer. Because it might be helpful if they were at the end, because then you could adjust your print. You could print them separately.
right. And if we make them available separately also, then if you had one doc, you know, your report open here and your map open there, you could kind of go back and forth between them easily. When they're within a document, you're going from page 35 to 72, and that's, you know, not an easy thing. All right, if we want to think on that and you know, decide. There were some other things I wanted to go through. I think that there is like a huge amount on agricultural soils for Bow, which has only mostly farmland soils of local significance. And I didn't know whether you thought that what was provided here was more than we needed, or do we want to put some things in an appendix and put a more slimmed down version within the body? Or maybe folks didn't focus on it.
Well, maybe we need, I don't know if anyone here is a soil scientist or somebody that has that type of interest. And so I don't know that you, I can't make a recommendation that it should be slimmed down or not.
It just is, there's, you know, such detail, and then you look and you say, okay, the first thing you talk, and a lot of it's because it's almost like a sieve with the farmland, the prime farmland, the farmland of statewide importance. It's sort of like you're culling off the really good stuff, and then you're getting down to the bottom ones, which are the local significance. That's kind of, you know, lesser.
What page are you on?
52. It starts on 50, goes from 50 to 52.
I guess I don't have any problem with all the detail being in there, but I got to admit I read over it pretty quick, because I don't know that it hurts anything being in there. I mean, if somebody's not interested in it, you just skip that section.
Yeah, I think what happens is you have to read through a lot before you know, like I said, Bow's 56% is farmland soils of local significance. The other two categories are each about 2%. So it's not like they make up the other 50%, which also is probably another question. So it just is to have so much on some stuff that really barely exists in Bow, and it's not really highlighted that way. I thought was just kind of,
Sandy,
yep.
can you explain to me what is the difference between statewide and local significance?
Well, they have this list of,
didn't check that.
yeah, this list of criteria. So basically, I guess it's almost like a sieve. So they look at the prime farmland, and these are the, the better soils, and the water table is kind of deep, and the soil is not saturated. And then you go to farmland of statewide importance, and they may look at, okay, so it has slopes less than 15%. It's not stony, not poorly or very poorly drained, which you're talking about wetlands. So basically you're going from the more productive soils to the less productive soils, at least in terms of, I don't know, what do you want to say, crops or whatever. So like the criteria for soils of local importance in Bow are soils that are poorly drained, have artificial drainage established, and are being farmed. So poorly drained, you're talking about wetlands. So farmland of local importance is wetlands in Bow. And then it says specific soil maps identified from the NRCS soil survey legend as determined by the Conservation District Board. So it's like, what I may do is I may call up, I know somebody who's a soil scientist with NRCS in locally, and ask her how to better interpret this stuff. So it's just you're going from the statewide importance are not as good as the prime farmland, but it's better than the local importance.
Yeah, I hear that. And, I can see the statewide importance has, a number for the slope and a percentage for the soil and rock outcrop. But I kind of get lost with the,
it's kind of like, and then there's everything else.
Right. Right. And I don't even know what accounts for the other, 45%.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't this stuff important for timber production? I mean, don't you have to know all this to know whether you're going to have a good area?
Well, there are the forest soils, which is different. So there's an important forest soils category that's different than the ag.
Okay, so you're just thinking of skinnying down the ag portion?
Yes. And once again, I may give a shout to the woman that I know at NRCS, the soil scientist, and ask her, because she does a lot of outreach, and she would probably have some good way of explaining it that perhaps we can add or substitute or something. I just think that you have to read through, you start reading, and prime farmland, well, it's 2%. It's fine to say maybe that Bow has 2%, but to spend this amount of detail on it just seems to be a lot. It just has so little bearing.
Right, but you have the remainder, so the 50% is also significant. It's just not the prime.
Right.
The statewide and the local
the prime is 2%. The statewide significance is almost 2%. And your 56%, that's local significance. And then my question, so what's the balance? What's the 40%? I don't even know what the 40% is.
Well, because they're not important agricultural soils, so that's why they're not mentioned. Because it says important agricultural soils cover approximately 60% of bow.
Okay.
But you should talk to NRCS. I mean, maybe they can convince you. Like I said, I don't think, if none of us are soil scientists,
Right.
it's not gonna. And I was kind of the same way. I kind of skimmed through it, but you know, it may be very interesting, very important to somebody else. So.
And I guess also some of it, like it talks about criteria are determined by a state committee chaired by the commissioner. You know, it goes through a real detail that I think is unnecessary.
Yeah, I felt like throughout the document there were certain things that they just go on this high level that isn't really that pertinent for our plan. But,
right, and so you know, if you're going to give a reference, and then we can go look at the reference if we want that level of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I will talk to Karen Dudley. Is who. All right, and I want to finish up here so that we can do the story map. Let's see. Oh, so with the conservation focus areas, which I know will kind of be a point of discussion, I think, with the story map. Do you, which and those begin on page 72. I don't know whether it would help to, if you want me to bring up my screen or not. I didn't know if you liked how it was presented. I guess first of all, they identified 17 conservation focus areas. One of them is 1.7 acres. I wonder whether it's one lot, and I didn't know whether I wanted to call it a conservation focus area or whether we wanted to highlight it or identify it some other way. And then whether the kind of the presentation, whether we want it to be more in a table, would it be more readable that way? And then I also noted there were a couple of conservation focus areas that may include a recently subdivided area, like the Three Stone Walls, I think includes land that was recently subdivided. But I think it kind of overlapped with the information, with the timing of the report, so. Any thoughts by anybody?
Just so I understand what you said, you're suggesting a table in addition to the text? Is that what you?
No. I was thinking a table instead of the text. It may be, you know, I don't know. I may just see what I could do with it. I just thought that it.
Well, the text has the rationale for why they picked it. Where would the rationale be?
Oh, I would put it in the table too. I wouldn't really leave anything out, but I think there are things like in so total area, you could have that as a column, title, you know, so some of these categories could actually be columns. You could have like an X in it versus having to repeat the text every time. And that way it might be easier to do some comparisons. And I guess I think that may be something that I need to just try and do and see how it works. But rather than having, you know, pages of bullets, I just thought it would be easier to be able to review.
It is hard to make comparisons. You're right. I mean, looking across all text of all that, it's hard to compare.
All right. I'll do a table and I'll share it with folks and see what you think of it. I have trouble dealing with like multiple pages of text that the formatting doesn't help. Does anybody have anything they want to comment on before we move to the story map? And I don't know whether we want to, Linda, if you have anything to say about the report or the maps before we move to the story map discussion?
No, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay. So I will bring up the story map on my screen. Let me, whoops, oh, I double click on it and then I forget that it doesn't work that way. So can everybody see the story map?
Yes.
Okay. So I know that I had sent out when I was looking at, and actually I just pulled up this other worksheet. Someone had developed a planning your next story map outline, and I just thought, although it probably would have been good to do at the front of it, it would be perhaps helpful to focus thinking about the story map that we have and whether it meets what we think it should be, and how we think it may need to be modified if it doesn't meet what we want. I know that at one time, you know, earlier this year, I think we decided that we liked the format with the tabs versus the scrolling version that was in that I think Concord Open Space has. But that doesn't mean that this version, the way it's presented, meets what we want. So I don't know, Bob, do you want to go over your comments first, or you want me to talk about them? I have your email, or Bob sent me all his comments and stuff ahead of time.
Well, I guess I'm thinking that very few people are actually going to read the document that we just went over, the entire thing, because of its length, and it's more of a reference kind of thing. So I was thinking this document, this tool, storybook tale tool, should lead them through to get to the same conclusion that the document does, by presenting the maps, rationale for the maps, and then finally ending up saying these are the 17 CFAs that I think are important. So that's what I think it ought to do in the end. You know, what the bottom line should be. I think it's and then you get into the style issues of how you do that, and you could certainly do that with this format. I think it could be modified to do that. I personally like the one that you read the story and the map changes as you're reading.
Just scrolling, yeah.
Just scrolling, yeah. But if we're past that, can't do it, then we are where we are. But I think the bottom line ought to be somebody who wants to know about, what we've just done. They want to get a synopsis of it. They could pull this up, and it would lead them through to get to the same conclusions the document do. These can also be used as a public dissemination of information. In other words, these things can be set up so you could put them in a library or something and have it continuously run as an information kind of thing for people. This one does not lend itself to that in its current format. So that's kind of, what I was thinking. And I don't know how much work would be to take what we have to get it at that point. Maybe we're too far down the line to do that, but it comes up a little bit short in terms of telling the story to me.
I know, like I said, I think, Bob, it may have been the one meeting that you missed. But I know it wouldn't have the flow, and I think that one of the things that Jeff had said to us, just decide which format do you want. And I think this is what we decided. But it doesn't mean that the tabs have to stay the same. It doesn't mean that the image has to be the same. And the text can be, so I think there's room to change things as long as it's this format.
Well, if we leave it in this format, it should at least be able to, as you're in the document, we were just discussing the maps in the document and the readability of them. It should be easy to, I'm in this section of the document and I want to see a more detailed thing of the conservation public land. I should be able to come here and find that map as a tab or easily get to it so I could expand it and get it down to the level I wanted to. So there should be that, if we're going to leave it this format, you should be able to go from the document to this and be able to make that connection on the maps.
I think there may be more maps. I hear what you're saying. The other thing is, and I hadn't mentioned it earlier, I think the conservation, the development of the conservation focus areas in the report didn't talk about the 3 general areas that contributed to the conservation focus areas. So we, where did I write this? So we had, they did a model that was like an ag forestry, they did an ecological resources, and they did a water resources. And I think those were the 3 that really fit in, led, formed, were used to come to the conservation focus areas. And I think the report doesn't say that at all. Or maybe it alludes to it, but which I think that actually needs to be added. And then I didn't know whether some of that information needs to be presented here. Anybody else's thoughts on the story map? And
this is Wendy. I agree with what Bob said. I mean, it does kind of fall short as far as something being engaging and telling a story and drawing the public in. I I like the tabs. Just looking at it, what stands out, one thing, Sandy, is this agricultural tab. Perhaps it should reference soils or something instead. Because the intro, the text says, Bow is rich with important soils for forest management and agriculture, and the map is just an agriculture map. So I think the text should be talking about both types of soils, and then the map, maybe you could click on one that would show you the agricultural soils, and then you could click on another that would show you the forest type.
Well, see, we already have the forest is the forest soils. These are actually forest soils.
Oh, there is the forest tab. Oh, I see that.
But see, I wonder whether the agriculture and forest should somehow be put together.
Yeah, that's what I think you could do that. But it would be nice if these, well, what you had talked about, the conservation focus areas, that there may be a different way of organizing this or focusing on different areas than what they put up here.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that, you know, some of the text also was a little too, for the website, it needs to be less bookish. Like Wendy, you were saying, just more engaging and telling a story. And I think it needs to be, you know, kind of better in that regard. And I also just kind of the format, I think that they need to make sure that the symbols that are used that are specific to the tab are actually at the top and not at the bottom. We don't need to know on every page the town boundary is the black line, you know. But the forest soils we really need to have at the top so that we see that information. The other thing is I found, I know I sent a couple of examples. I found another couple, and basically with one of the examples that I looked at, the overview was actually a photograph of something like a waterfall or something in a town where, or county where they did their an NRI and a story map. So, or sometimes people put a photograph on the left where this text is. They'd have text with a photograph, and then you had the map to the right. So you can also make the left area more engaging by providing, you know, a photo of you know, tree, a vernal pool, a wood frog, you know, hayfield, you know, what have you. So something that would be more eye-catching than seeing the outline of Bow on every map. Or only the outline of Bow on every map. Any other thoughts or suggestions on the story map? I think we probably will need to, you know, come up with some kind of specific, well, we want the following tabs. I mean, I think what Bob said with, you know, making sure that, and Wendy, that we tell a story, I think, you know, at least the last tab should be the conservation focus areas. So I think that's something that we want to have. I don't know.
So I assume, Sandy, I mean, like I said, I assumed in the beginning, like, we aren't going to be able to get that much more from them as far as adding to this.
Well, I'll tell you one additional thing.
Okay.
Because this needs to be hosted on a web, well, it'll be linked on our website, but it needs to be hosted by somebody that has the ArcGIS capability. I contacted the Regional Planning Commission, the Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, and they're willing to host it at no charge. They also, I think, have an intern who would like set it up, and it may be possible to get additional work changes. I mean, we need to get Moosewood to, make some of the changes, but I think if there's anything further that we need to have done, we could work with the Regional Planning Commission and have them make some changes. I think initially there might not be a charge. I don't know in the longer term to get support, there might be some charge, but I just figured since they have the GIS capability and they've done other things for Bow, that would be probably a good place for it to reside.
One of the things I was thinking to make it more engaging, and I mean, in addition to putting photos like you suggested, for each category, it would be nice maybe to have a pop-up story about one of the town forests, kind of describe that in more detail. You could probably do that for each category.
Yep. Yeah, that would be good. Do you think, because all these tabs, nothing says wildlife.
Right. Well, we've talked about that kind of.
But I think that it could easily be, the information could be brought in both based upon their observations as well as, known inhabitants of certain habitats, that information could be brought in.
So it would be part of the habitat land cover, or it would be a separate thing? Because I guess that is where they bring it in somewhat.
Yeah.
The discussion. But they don't talk about it that much. I mean, this is where it would be referenced, but they don't get into the sightings, but they get into wildlife action plan.
I'm sorry. What's that? I wasn't sure.
I said they talk about the wildlife action plan. They don't talk about specific sightings and whatnot.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, also instead of saying habitat land cover, having it say wildlife habitat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could talk about wildlife, but that's where your wildlife is rather than habitat land cover.
So you just want to change the tab title?
Well, I would probably also change the text within it, modify it a little bit, put in a photo or two of wildlife that's maybe associated with certain habitats.
And it would be kind of cool if you could take this map and you could zoom in where those eastern brook trout are or whatever, and that's where you would have your little pop-up about talking about the wild eastern brook trout and that they exist here or something. That would be pretty cool. It would interact with the map.
Right. Yeah. you know, that may be a phase 2 of the story map.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm just thinking as I'm sure we could come up with all sorts of ideas to enhance this. So I don't know what's feasible right now.
Don't you have to be careful though where you show some of the wildlife, because you don't want to show stuff on private property, because then you run the risk of people going to spots that you really don't want them to go to.
Right. Yes, I agree. And it would probably be more related to, okay, in Knox or Notting Cook. Yes, I mean, you probably want to pick areas that are public lands.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, sorry. Just keeps going. Any other thoughts or suggestions? So I guess
Just a question on the hosting of the Sandy. I know Esri will host these for you. I mean, what's the advantage of having him host it at the regional planning versus just doing it through Esri?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware that Esri would host it. I guess the other advantage, like I said, if we wanted to make changes to it, there would likely be the capability at the Regional Planning Commission to make changes.
Okay, I guess that was my only concern. 5 years from now, would the information still be available to change? I mean, is it something where they're going to do this once and they're done with it, or can we get some sort of long-term support from them?
Well, I suspect that the GIS capability in the Regional Planning Commission is going to continue. So that I was thinking that's why it would be good to go with them. I mean, we could probably make sure that we have the files that are needed. So if something went kapoof someplace else, we actually had the files, even if we didn't have the capability to host it at the moment.
Okay, that's good. We wouldn't have to buy the license or anything. They would use their license.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Right, because I even asked them about a cost and they said, oh yeah, there would be no charge. And I think
I think Esri charges $500 a year.
Oh, right, that's right. Yeah, and I think I had seen that and I had started to look into that, and I know there's actually an organization who did some work for the Bow business development, actually did a story map for the business development stuff, but it's a a company that does that type of stuff, but I think it was a one-time thing. So because I was looking at options, and then I thought about the Regional Planning Commission. I know Jeff had said that they might be able, he might be able to host it, but I just thought it might be good, like I said, with the Regional Planning Commission. I think the capability should be there in the long term. I think they were getting like an intern on board, and so they were hoping to have the intern, provide some assistance with getting it set up.
Okay, does Bow as a town hold a license? I mean, I would think
No, Bow does not. We have no GIS.
Okay.
We've really contracted out like that CAI, who's done that, the tax map stuff, that's all contracted out. So Bow doesn't have the license. We've paid other people. So I guess I want to ask with the story map, so what are the tabs that we want to have at the top? What do we want to start with? I guess the question is, we have a forest and it's forest soils. So I think that we were talking about seeing if we could combine forest and ag, possibly. I don't know how much, and then make it clear that it's the soils, you know.
But yeah, I don't know, but the soils isn't the most interesting thing.
I agree.
So I don't know if you can talk about forestry separate and the benefits and whatnot, and kind of mention the soils, but more focus on our forest resources. And then the ag could be another area. I mean, you could combine it, but I see ag as being separate, and again, not focusing so much on soils. But they had talked about, I mean, I don't know, what do we have? One working farm or something, but we also have the hay fields and stuff like that, which are kind of important.
Yeah, it's just that this map doesn't really show it.
No, it doesn't, but that's what those two topics you're talking about, what kind of tabs we want. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't think the soils is the thing that a story map would be the most engaging for people. But that's what we're left with, I guess, stuck with, I guess, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, that's what's been provided here. Yeah, I guess let's talk about what we think we want, and then I'll see what the, you know, what the possibilities are.
I think CFA is definitely one, right?
Yeah, CFAs, definitely. Conservation focus areas, absolutely. Yeah.
And shouldn't it kind of follow the report as well? We should have the same tabs for the sections that were in the report.
Well, I guess the thing is that we have to figure out, well, there's a, okay, so there's a water resources. There's an ecological resource, but ecological resources includes wildlife, unfragmented lands. So, and then you have agriculture and forest. And have conservation focus areas. So we have water. So for the ecological, we have the, we were talking about making the habitat land cover, calling it wildlife habitat, and then kind of modifying some of the description to focus more on the wildlife aspect. We have the unfragmented land. We have, we said water, I guess the forest and ag, we need to figure out, do we want to, clearly I want to show that it's soils related, because, you know, if we end up sticking with these for now, just showing them that they're soils related. We could, you see, the forest one is actually not a bad one in terms of description, because it gives tree types. And then you have the conserved public land, which one of the issues is that if we are going to have a map with the numbers on it, we have to have a key with the numbers on it that you can read alongside it. So I think that needs to be in the legend along with the color.
Well, Sandy, if you click on the numbers, you can see what the names are.
Ah, thank you. Oh, that's right. I actually had seen that before. I forgot. That's right. I had gone through that. Okay. All right. But anyway, like I said, with these keys, the unique information needs to be at the top and not at the bottom. So other than adding the CFAs and changing like forest and ag to either at least say soils, or, I'm not sure how we can combine them, because I'm not sure how much, I think he's basically done with a lot of the mapping. But I would have those refer to the soils so that it's clear what it represents.
Well, I was saying, couldn't you, if you do want to combine it into one tab, couldn't you just click on something and it would, in your description, and you'd see the forest soils, and then you'd click on a pair, whatever, a header for agriculture, and it would switch like it does for water. It talks about surface water and then it says displayed, but you can click on the groundwater and then it shows that. I wasn't really sure why it says surface water displayed, because you can see both.
I don't see any ground. Oh,
if you click on it in the text, the word,
I see soil. This is soil information.
No, I'm talking about doing similar for ag and forest as they did with water, where you see surface water and the groundwater.
See, I don't
on the same tab.
Okay, I don't.
So.
Okay, I don't see the groundwater. And
but you have to, if you click on groundwater in the text. And it changes. So that's why I say I don't know why they say surface water displayed, because they both technically are displayed, depending upon what you're looking at. So you could do the same for your ag and forest soils. You could switch the map under that same tab.
I didn't even notice.
That'd be neat. That'd be good.
Ag and forest soils, like water. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Can we go back to the conserved public land for just a second?
Sure.
I was trying to understand some of these ones where you click on the number, it doesn't give you the name and it says 0 acres.
Yeah. I'll have to see. I think, well, the name, some of them don't have a name, but it shouldn't say 0 acres. Oh yeah, look at that.
Say 0 acres.
Okie dokie.
There's something wrong in their database.
Right, they're not pulling the information from the right location. Okay, so,
Why wouldn't they have the name? They should have the name too, right?
Well, some of these things are like an open space parcel. They might not have been named at the time that it was considered an open space parcel, or, made open space. Some of these might be related to a subdivision and they were not named. So yeah, a lot of them just don't have names, but definitely they have acres.
Yeah, they could put something like unnamed or something in there, just for completeness.
And that is, let's see, what number was that as an example? It was number
62.
12.
62 is one.
Okay. Yeah, I also see some of these streams were really not labeled as they should be. So I have to talk to Jeff about that, because they really needed to be, when you label streams, you can have them follow the stream, kind of the curvature, and these were not done that way, which they should be. They're little blocky things all over. Okay. All right. So we'll look at seeing if we can combine forest and ag. And we'll change habitat land cover to wildlife habitat. And I know, like I said, a lot of these, I think the text needs to be revised. I actually cut and pasted the text into a document. I don't know if anybody wants to have that to look at and provide specific suggestions on, and whether that may be easier to review that way than on the screen in terms of making suggestions. So combine forest and ag, change habitat. So water was basically okay.
Well, yeah, I just think they need to get rid of that displayed in the parentheses.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I guess somehow it needs to explain some, it should be obvious that you can switch the map.
Okay. All right, now we have the unfragmented land. Once again, with some of these, if you have suggestions about photos or types of photos you think would be good, I think even for each of these, it would really make it more interesting. So let me know. And if you have any, have anything to offer, that'd be fine. We can consider that, or I can see what I can drum up.
On the unfragmented land, there are a couple really small sections of land there that don't appear to be areas of large connected with large blocks.
Yeah, I see those small ones look like they're, well, they say less than 100 acres. But yeah, I don't know what the lower threshold is. That's,
Well, they don't look like 100 acres.
no, but the lowest category is less than 100 acres. But some of them look like, they may be like 5, possibly. They do look small. Yeah. Okay. I'll, yeah. All right. Then the conserved public land we talked about. Once again, if we want to put a photo on the left of like either a kiosk for any of the areas or a trail sign with the trail marker, you know, any of those things, if you want to, like I said, make a suggestion on that, that would be fine.
Did we, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit. Maybe I missed this one. When you were talking about the habitat land cover, you're going to add wildlife to that, right?
The idea was that we call it wildlife habitat.
Sure. And then, so on here, we've got the vernal pools. And
Whoops,
just looking at the map, the vernal pools, they just seem so big, the circles. Is that the way it's supposed to be?
Well, the thing is, if you make the circles too much smaller, they're not going to be visible.
Okay. But when you zoom in, it seems like maybe they're the same size. Maybe
No,
they just look better.
they don't get bigger.
No, I thought they were almost getting smaller, but maybe that's just the perception because you're zooming in.
They stay the same size.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So I may, well, I know we'll have minutes from the meeting, but I may write up some additional notes on the things we discussed. Once again, does anybody want to take a look at the text of these different sections with an eye toward how we need to, you know, tweak it or what you think needs to be added? You don't have to, you know, I'm not asking people to rewrite it, but nobody's interested? Okay. Okay. All righty. Anything else that comes to mind that you think we didn't cover? No further comments or, like I said, I'll put this information together. I have a whole bunch of edits on the suggestions on the report too, but I'll see if I can you know, try and put these together. And I indicated that I would do a table of the CFAs so that it may be an easier document to kind of look at and do comparisons of. Anything else? Any other comments or input from anybody? No? Okay.
Not now.
All right. Well, we meet in, well, we have a site walk a week from tomorrow. And then we meet the following Monday. So.
Are we doing the minutes?
You know, I wasn't going to do the minutes. I wasn't ready to do the minutes. Would have been a good idea, but I just,
Okay.
I didn't. And I know we're behind. I think I forgot to give Albina the edits the last time. So, all right. So I think we're set, and I'll see how quickly I can put this stuff together. So I may have folks take a look at it or get it to folks ahead of the next meeting, so you can just take a look and see if everything was captured. All right. Anybody
Sounds
want
good.
to move adjournment?
Wendy makes a motion to adjourn.
And who wants the second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
This
Aye.
is Bob.
Aye.
Aye.
We don't have
Yeah.
to do, we don't have to do roll call for adjournment. All right, well, thank you, everybody. And if something else comes to mind, let me know, particularly in terms of photos and such. And I'll get some other stuff to everybody before our next meeting. All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you, Alvina.
Bye.
Bye.